My Advent reflections, my own prayer this Advent has been of a different theme, I guess. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the things that have been striking me this Advent, I guess. So it's you're going to get an insight into both my homilies and my spiritual life, I suppose, today. And actually, I think the reason why my Advent is so unique this year, at least in my spiritual life, is it's been colored by two books that I've been reading. Chesterton's Francis of Assisi, his biography on him, and Mother Mary Francis's Advent Meditations, Come Lord Jesus, Meditations on the Art of Waiting. So it's like a daily walk through, just daily reflections. She was the superior for the Claretians in Roswell, New Mexico for 40 years. And at a certain point, the sisters said to themselves, we should start writing down what Mother has to say. And so they started writing down her reflections, put it together in a book after her death. And it is such a powerful book. And I've been getting a lot out of it. So what you're getting is a lot of me filtering my own prayer life through these two books. The first thing that is really striking me is the absurdity, almost, the extreme superabundance of what God did in the Incarnation. So you have God becoming man, which is a super humble thing to do, obviously. And but it's not just humble, like he had in the reading yesterday at Mass. I am meek and humble of heart. That's a bit of an overstatement. Jesus is the extreme of humility. God becomes man, but he doesn't just become a man. He could have become a man anywhere. He could have been like Melchizedek and just come out of nowhere, already a full-grown man, already a king. But he chose to become a child. Okay, God becomes a baby that's completely dependent on other people. That's humility, that's meekness. But he also chose to become man within the Jews, a persecuted people. He could have, why not be born into the Romans? Because the Romans were powerful people. That would make more sense strategically, maybe. If you want to convert the whole world, convince the world that you as a man are God, go to the people who already believe in lots of gods, who already believe that human beings can be God. So he chooses the people for whom it will be the hardest to convince that he is God. He goes to the Jews, this small people, this persecuted people. So we see already in Jesus just how extreme is his humility, but we see over and over in the Gospels how extreme is his mercy. It doesn't matter who comes to him, he has mercy on them. It doesn't matter what their sins are, he forgives them. We see the extremes of his love, the extremes of his joy, the extremes of his poverty. He was homeless, really. And so he is kind of the model of this superabundance, this overflowing. And Mother Mary Francis has this meditation on this overflowing that we see in St. Francis. And I shared this quote yesterday at my Mass. It's a long quote, but it is really good, really worth reflecting on. How small could Christ be? It's as though God searched for the smallest way so that we could get the message. How little could he have? How meek could he be? How much could his love suffer? We are called by the Church very directly, in the words of the Apostle, to overflow in love. It can never be, this will suffice, or I will give this much service. I'll give this much mercy. I'll give this much forgiveness. I'll give this much putting away of my own hurts, my disappointments, and even sometimes almost bitter ones. How often will I put these away? Now these are his answers. We know that when a receptacle of any liquid is filled to the brim, you cannot expect to move without spilling some. And that is a wonderful thing spiritually. Because if we're really overflowing with love for one another, we cannot move without it splashing out. But we can all be overflowing with love, every one of us, so that we just can't move without splashing all over the house, all over our brothers and sisters, and all over the church. It's kind of a funny image, I suppose, to say. Advent is that chance to imitate Christ in the extremes. Take poverty more seriously. Take humility more seriously. Take his mercy, his love more seriously, and allow it to form us. And this idea of that it fills us up to the point that we splash everywhere we go. So it's no longer just ours. It's something that's sharing with other people. We see that in all the saints. We see that in St. Francis of Assisi. We see that in everyone, this overflow. And there's never a point at which it's enough. We're good enough today. I've been nice enough to that person. I've forgiven that person enough. There's never enough. We always are seeking for the overabundance. And the only way to really get to that, it seems to me, is to do an honest look at our heart. I think that was kind of the challenge of the first Sunday of Advent's readings, especially the God is the potter, we are the clay reflection. How good are we at being clay? Are we letting God mold our heart? And so are we asking God during Advent to shape our hearts? Ask him to show us what he sees when he looks at our hearts. Because God sees our hearts honestly. He sees the bad stuff and he sees the good stuff. And so asking the Lord to see his face, asking the Lord, Lord, what do you see when you look at me? He'll show you the bad stuff. He'll show you the stuff that he wants you to go to confession for, the habits and that kind of thing. But he also sees the stuff that he thinks is wonderful about us, the stuff that he wants us to rejoice in, the stuff that he wants to draw more out. Maybe even asking God would give me an image to understand how to look at my heart. When I was on my 30-day retreat, which was, I don't know how many years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago, 30-day Ignatian exercises. And there's a point in the first week where you're supposed to be meditating on hell. So you ask the Lord to give you an image of hell. And for different people, it's a different kind of thing. My spiritual director talked about one time when he was on a 30-day retreat, his meditation on hell was the mall. So you know, God can reveal maybe a certain idea of hell to you in a way that speaks to you. And so here I am thinking I'm meditating on hell, and my meditation, Ignatian prayer is kind of this imaginative prayer. And my meditation was a gigantic cement room, like this dark gray cement, with all these corners, these dark, dark corners, and just one naked light bulb hanging in the middle of the room. And I thought that was my image of hell for a while. And it was interesting because as I went into the meditation, I was this little kid. I was like 12-year-old me. And I'm afraid to move from the center of the room because I'm afraid of the dark corners that I can't see in. It was a really interesting meditation. Thankfully, I had a very good spiritual director to kind of walk me through some stuff. And so I'm saying to my spiritual director, I don't get what's going on. This is a weird meditation on hell. Like, am I alone? Why am I a little kid? What's in the corners that I'm afraid of? Like, what is all this? And he says, well, invite Jesus into it. Okay, obvious solution. So I invite Jesus into it, and now I'm the little kid holding Jesus' hand, and we start walking towards one of the corners that I'm afraid to go to, but I feel more confident now that Jesus is there. And as we walked into each one of the corners, they were painful realities of my own life, past memories, things that hurt, things that had shaped the way that I thought of God, the shaped who I had been, and usually the things that had kind of shaped who I had been in bad ways, you know, just not that I was, I don't know. They were wounds, I guess you could say, that I hadn't yet worked through, and I hadn't yet invited Christ into those things. And at the end of my 30-day retreat, my spiritual director said to me, you know, I don't think that was really your meditation on hell. I think that was an image of your heart. You needed to go, God drew you to that place so that you could see what he sees when he looks at your heart. And there were these places in my heart that I hadn't yet brought Christ. I hadn't invited him in. And that was a powerful image for me of my own heart. And it's amazing how over the course of years, every now and then, God brings me back to that meditation and shows me something new. He's not showing me another corner, but you know, it took me, I think, 3 years before he showed me that there's a door in the room. I can get out of this place. And so it was interesting to see how it even developed, and to see, okay, God is showing me that I'm moving on from my wounds. I'm no longer holding on to these things. But asking the Lord for an image of our heart. Maybe the image of God being a potter and us being the clay is actually a helpful meditation on what does our heart look like. Or, you know, this is as I was praying with that reading before preaching that weekend, I was making this prayer. God, show me what my heart looks like, because I really enjoyed that meditation from years ago. What's my heart look like now? And I had this meditation of a piece of clay sitting on the stool that the clay master uses. And as the hands are coming in, the clay keeps moving out of the way. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is kind of me right now. You know, I keep like, I'm the clay that's really hard to work with right now, I feel like. Because I got my own ideas of what I want to be and what I think my ministry needs to be. And the Lord is making this invitation to all of us to be the clay in the potter's hands. And so that's the very first reading of the very first Sunday of Advent this year. And I think that image in some ways should be setting the tone for all of us during Advent. You know, as the potter works on the clay, he's working out the imperfections. And I was thinking working out imperfections meaning like removing rocks, but I was talking with some parishioner, and he said, no, he does pottery. He says, you got to work out the air bubbles. Oh. It's a strange image. Okay, so let God work out the air bubbles in your life in Advent, working out those imperfections. And I think maybe the thing that strikes me the most about that particular image is the fact that as the potter is working on the clay, the table's spinning, right? He's making the clay spin while he shapes it. And that's kind of maybe a painful reality of the Advent season, preparing for Christmas. Life always feels like it's spinning. You got the holidays coming up. You got to deal with family coming up. We got a lot going on in the parish, and it can kind of feel like things are spinning out of control. And I think God allows that to happen because he knows when we're spinning, he can actually shape us a little bit better. Because so long as we're standing still and we think that we're in control, we don't turn to God so easily. And so he allows a certain amount of spinning. He allows us to kind of feel like we're not completely in control because in those moments we turn to God and we allow him to shape us. So those are my really general reflections and really fast reflections on Advent this year. Just hopefully some things maybe to give you something different to think about this year rather than just prepare the way. I think prepare the way is still the theme of Advent and always will be the theme of Advent, but hopefully some different facets to look at it.